I'm not scared. And I'm not going to be scared.
11 pro-Palestinian protesters accused of storming the Stanford president's office head to court to face vandalism charges. Why they're challenging a grand jury indictment. Plus, it's California's insurance plan of last resort.
There are really no rules for the FAIR Plan. They basically just kind of do what they want to do.
Now the FAIR Plan is seeking its largest rate hike in years. We hear from homeowners in one Bay Area neighborhood that could be hit hardest. And Californians are making their voices heard about redistricting.
This is really important. This may be the most important election I ever vote in.
What you need to know is early voting for the November special election begins today. And later, despite the shutdown, the show must go on.
Standing before us are young men and women who have chosen a path of service, a commitment to something greater than themselves.
New military recruits make a commitment to serve during Fleet Week.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
Hello, I'm Sarah Donchi. Juliet has the night off. Tomorrow will mark 2 years since Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking 250 hostages. For 2 years, Israel has retaliated against Hamas, killing over 67,000 Palestinians, according to Hamas. Outrage over the attack and subsequent war spilled over into college campuses across the U.S. And here in the Bay Area, a group of pro-Palestinian protesters are now facing criminal charges. The protesters are accused of locking themselves inside the president's office on campus in June of last year and causing hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. 11 of the protesters were indicted by a grand jury last week. Their supporters held a rally outside their arraignment today at the Santa Clara County Courthouse, calling for those charges to be dropped.
There was no reason to bring these charges, no reason to charge this case like this, no reason to seek an indictment.
Our Kelsey Thorne has a closer look at the charges and at what comes next.
Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
I'm not scared. And I'm not going to be scared.
11 current and former Stanford students stood outside the Santa Clara County Courthouse just minutes after being arraigned on conspiracy and felony vandalism charges related to last year's pro-Palestinian protest and takeover of a university office. Flanked by their lawyers and supporters, they called out what they say are sham charges.
They are political in nature. They are extreme.
A grand jury indicted the 11 last week for what the DA's office says is their involvement in the break-in and occupation of the Stanford president's office back in June of 2024. The DA says the defendants used hammers and crowbars to break into the office at 5:30 a.m., barricading the entrance with office furniture and spraying the room with fake blood. The occupation lasted nearly 3 hours, causing anywhere between $360,000 to $1 million worth of damage. The DA's office would not make anyone available for an interview today, but DA Rosen spoke in April when the charges were first filed about the sophisticated planning involved.
They had operational plans, they had lookouts, they were scouting out the area to see what time either uniformed police officers or private security would be around.
The defendants are not only calling for their charges to be dropped, but they are also calling out the DA for using a grand jury to indict them instead of waiting for the preliminary hearing.
The district attorney opted to engage in a secret, private, one-sided grand jury indictment process.
Word of the grand jury indictment came as defense lawyers and their clients were preparing for the preliminary hearing that just had been moved to a later date. Stephen Clark, a former prosecutor, told us everything about this case is unique.
The DA took a very unusual tactic by taking this case to the grand jury. What they're saying is that this was a conspiracy to commit vandalism, and they're casting a very wide net here. And I think the big question moving forward is, are they going to quell free speech by bringing prosecutions for felonies like this?
Rosen made a point in April to say there is a difference between free speech and destroying campus property.
Dissent is American. Vandalism is criminal.
A trial date has been set for November 17th. Stephen told me he doubts the trial will actually begin that quickly, given the size of this case and the number of defendants. But if and when it does begin, he says jury selection may be the most important phase.
How does a jury in Santa Clara County look at this issue? Because we are a very progressive area and we do respect free speech rights. The question will be, will a jury return a guilty verdict when these important constitutional rights are at stake?
Meanwhile, families of hostages held a vigil outside of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home. This comes as indirect peace talks are underway between Israel and Hamas in Egypt. The current proposal will require Israel to immediately stop all strikes against Gaza, and Hamas will have to return all remaining hostages within 72 hours. Hamas has agreed to some parts, including the hostage prisoner swap and handing over control of Gaza to a transitional international body. We are following breaking news right now out of San Francisco. 3 pedestrians were hurt after a crash in Pacific Heights. San Francisco Fire tells us one of the victims is a baby. Our chopper is over the scene at Divisadero and Pacific. You can see firefighters and police are at the intersection there in a car. Looks like it has dents on the hood and the windshield. First responders are at the scene attending to a person on the sidewalk. Firefighters say that all patients were conscious and breathing. That's certainly good news. We are going to continue to ask for more updates on how all of those people involved are doing, and we will bring you those updates as soon as we get them. And a traffic alert in the North Bay, a big backup right now on southbound Highway 101 near San Rafael after a crash. This is near the Terra Linda exit. Our helicopter was over the scene over the last half hour. You can see 3 cars there smashed into one another. At last check, 2 southbound lanes were open. The crash is also creating major traffic in the northbound lanes. Here is turning now to first alert weather and a warm up to start the week. This is a live look right now at Ocean Beach, where today's heat brought some crowds trying to cool off. Paul Hagan joining us now with how long we can expect the heat to last. Paul?
One more day of coastal warmth and then the heat around the bay and farther inland. But it's October heat, so we're not talking August, September. And it's not nearly the heat we had last October. That was ridiculous. Fortunately, we're not going to see anything like that. Temperatures today did top out mostly in the 80s inland. Here's a look at today's observed high temperatures. Made it up to 72 degrees at Half Moon Bay, all the way up to 84 degrees in San Francisco. One of the warmest days so far in 2025. Most inland temperatures made it into the upper half of the 80s. Even got up to 88 degrees in Redwood City. Temperatures Fairfield, Concord, Livermore into the mid to upper 80s and all the way up to almost 90 degrees in Santa Rosa earlier this afternoon. Tomorrow is going to be another warm day with temperatures reaching up to about 5 to 10 degrees above average. I think some of the hottest spots inland are going to manage to crack 90 degrees, but it's not record setting and it's not dangerously hot. The temperatures still this time of year, the records are around 100 degrees or even higher than that. Then a big pattern shift, a cool breezy day Wednesday. Outside chance of a shower Wednesday night and early Thursday morning, and a better chance of showers on the rain chart by Friday into Friday night. We'll take a look at that with our side-by-side forecast models coming up in just a few minutes. Sarah?
All right, Paul, thank you so much. It is certainly no secret that California is suffering an insurance crisis. Major wildfires have caused private insurance companies to deny coverage or to just pack up and leave the state. And that leaves hundreds of thousands of homeowners with the insurer of last resort, the California Fair Plan. And while it has never been a bargain, it may be about to get even more expensive. John Ramos explains.
The entire city of Clayton shares a common zip code, 94517. And hundreds of homeowners here share something else. They've all been kicked out of their insurance companies and sent to the California Fair Plan, which means they have one more thing in common. Their insurance rates may be going up big time. Clayton doesn't seem very dangerous, but the insurance companies sure think it is. Perhaps because of its proximity to Mount Diablo, 215 homeowners have been kicked to the Fair Plan, which covers only fire loss and can cost thousands of dollars more than private insurance. The Fair Plan was supposed to be just for those at highest risk, but the mega fires have given its customers a lot of company.
So today, with the number of policies we're writing, we are one of the largest writers of residential property insurance in the state of California. For us specifically, within the sustainable insurance strategy, the California Fair Plan needs to have adequate rates.
They have submitted what those increased rates should be at the California Department of Insurance, an average hike of 35.8% for about 4 out of 5 policyholders. And for Clayton, it would be much higher. Fair customers there will pay an average increase of more than 69%. Joe DeJani is a realtor who has sold more than 500 homes in Clayton and feels for those who end up in the Fair Plan.
Well, the Fair Plan was so expensive to go to a few years back. Now, all of a sudden, if we're looking maybe a 69% increase, absolutely, that's a concern. Yeah. And it's also going to be a concern for purchase. So buyers may choose to purchase other locations.
Carmen Balber is an executive director of Consumer Watchdog, a ratepayer advocacy group that frequently does battle with the Department of Insurance.
A double-digit increase of this size would be a devastating blow for consumers who are already paying too much for too little coverage under the FAIR plan, particularly in those places that are going to see the higher end of those average rate increases.
But she says the FAIR plan may sound like a government-operated agency, but that's not really the case. Its inner workings were recently studied by the Climate and Community Institute.
And in the case of California, we found that 100% of the representatives that have voting power in the governing committee of California's FAIR plan were industry executives or company representatives, which just shows that these FAIR plans are not fulfilling their mandate or reflecting the fact that they're public policy, but instead are run for and by private insurers, basically.
Usually the story is FAIR plan, the state insurer of last resort, and people hear state insurer, and that's all you get. And so, no, I don't think most people know that the FAIR plan is run by the very people who screwed them over to begin with.
The insurance commissioner will decide how much of an increase the FAIR plan will actually get. A few years ago, they asked for 48% and got 15%. So the rate hikes submitted are not a done deal. But those who are currently paying for the FAIR plan may be wondering why the state's insurer of last resort would be demanding a rate of every last dollar.
Ironically, some Bay Area zip codes might actually see their rates go down under this proposal. It's part of the state's new policy that allows insurers to price based on actual wildfire risk. All right, we are getting word that the government shutdown is having an impact at a California airport. This is the Burbank Airport just outside of Los Angeles. FlightAware is reporting 2-hour delays on incoming flights there. There are plenty of flights that go back and forth between Burbank and the Bay Area's major airports. The FAA issued a bulletin that the airport will have no air traffic controllers until 10 p.m. Obviously not a good headline to hear. We have reached out to the FAA. They say there have been increased staffing shortages across their system. But again, if you have a flight from the Bay Area to Burbank, you might want to check that for you or your family. All right, meantime, there is no sign of movement from either Democrats or Republicans on the 6th day of the shutdown. And a new CBS News poll reveals Americans are getting concerned this might impact the economy.
People perceive there could be an impact on the economy, and the economy is their top issue. In fact, half of them are very concerned about the potential impact on the economy. Another third, add to that, are somewhat concerned.
The White House has blamed Democrats and warns of mass firings of federal workers if the shutdown goes on. The Senate met this afternoon to vote on dueling Democratic and Republican measures to reopen the government, but both proposals failed for the 5th time. President Trump is threatening to use emergency powers to bypass courts and send National Guard troops to major cities. The president says that he is considering using the Insurrection Act if necessary. It comes after a federal judge blocked the Trump administration from deploying out-of-state National Guard troops, including California's, to Portland, Oregon. Over the weekend, more than 100 California National Guard troops arrived in that city to protect an ICE facility. Attorney General Rob Bonta was granted an emergency court order to stop the deployment of 200 more troops.
It's our National Guard, California's National Guard, not Trump's Royal Guard, as he seems to think. Trump can't use our military troops as his own personal police force.
Meantime, the president is setting his sights on the city of Chicago and formally ordered Illinois troops to that city. The state of Illinois and Chicago have filed a lawsuit to block the troop deployment there. Early voting is now underway for California's special election this November. Ballot drop boxes have been deployed. This is a look at locations in San Francisco and in San Jose. On the ballot is Prop 50, much discussed. It would temporarily redraw California's congressional district maps in response to Texas's newly redrawn districts. We spoke to voters in San Francisco about why they decided to cast their ballots early.
This is really important. This may be the most important election I ever vote in. So I just want to make sure it's done. I'm here. It's finished. Kaput.
This current moment, maybe fighting fire with fire is more important.
So if Prop 50 passes, 5 of California's U.S. House seats will shift to be more favorable to Democrats in next year's midterm elections. That aims to cancel out any gains that Republicans would make in the state of Texas with their new maps. Still ahead here at 6, despite uncertainty around this government shutdown, new recruits commit to serving in the U.S. military, how they're pivoting at the start of Fleet Week. A modified version of Fleet Week is happening in San Francisco because of the government shutdown. And one of the most important moments of the week kicked off today. New recruits across the Bay Area took their oath of enlistment, officially committing their lives to serve their country. Kevin Coe has more on that.
Yair Ibarra has played bass guitar for 5 years.
I'm in 5 bands right now, so I have practice 5-6 times a week.
That's the part he says he loves most, the training, the repetition, all towards a greater goal.
The part of music that I enjoy is the structure of it. And, you know, that's kind of how I'm looking towards my perspective towards the military, right?
Ibarra is a Navy recruit from Santa Rosa, set to take his oath of enlistment during San Francisco Fleet Week. We met him with the ceremony still a few days away, and he was still wrapping his head around his life-changing decision.
I've just been trying to prepare myself mentally, really, and just saying, you know, once I give this oath, not that there's no turning back, but really it's just blaze ahead. I've been used to being a civilian for my whole life, for 20 years, right? But, you know, my mindset's already drifting to being a future sailor. I take it seriously.
The moment arrived on Monday as Fleet Week's Oath of Enlistment ceremony was held at the San Francisco War Memorial.
Standing before us are young men and women who have chosen a path of service, a commitment to something greater than themselves.
You will represent San Francisco and the Bay Area. And when you finish, we want you to come back to us as leaders, as mentors, and as neighbors, shaping the next generation and enriching our communities with all that service has taught you.
This ceremony is also a microcosm of this year's Fleet Week. As the government shutdown continues, organizers are doing their best to keep the show going.
It would have been on top of the Navy ship that was visiting here on the deck. So we're really, really proud that we were able to pivot, keep it going, just like many of our other Fleet Week events.
It's an early lesson in rolling with the punches for these future sailors and Marines, including Ibarra, who says he wouldn't have it any other way.
They say sacrifice is the biggest, you know, testament of love. And I'm just gonna sacrifice a couple years to kind of prove my love to my family, my faith, my goals, my dreams, what I want to do. And I know this is the perfect way to do it.
Coming up, Bring a Dish, Make a Friend, the new tradition that brings people from all parts of San Francisco to the table. It is pretty warm out there.
Yeah, 84 degrees in San Francisco. It's one of the warmest days so far this year.
Yeah.
We got up to 88 last month for one day.
I was visiting elsewhere in California where it's always hot, and then I came back and I thought, what's going on
You
here?
brought it with you.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, for about one more day. And then it's back to Bay Area reality. Let's take a look at the big picture pattern here. Really not a cloud in the sky. Here's the satellite loop over the past 6 hours and severe clear. There is some fog along the coast, but it's farther down to our south. And it's not going to make much of a return to the Bay Area as we head through tonight and tomorrow. It's going to have more of an impact on temperatures around Monterey and Salinas, but the Bay Area is looking just fine. Clear skies overhead, even at the coast once again tomorrow. Let's check out the temperatures as they stand right now. We're looking at the readings in the 70s and 80s still at this point. A nice view from the Mark Hopkins Hotel. 74 degrees in San Francisco. So we've dropped 10 degrees already from that high of 84. Still holding on to 85 degrees right now in Concord. That's the warm spot on the map. Oakland's dropped quite a bit, 7 degrees in just the last hour, now down to 76 degrees. We'll end up in the 50s to around 60 degrees by early tomorrow morning. Temperatures are going to warm up in a hurry. Again, one more warm day in store for us with temperatures reaching up to about 5 to 10 degrees above average. We're going to get up into the upper 80s to near 90 degrees in the Santa Clara Valley. 87 for San Jose, but 89 Los Gatos and 90 in Morgan Hill. At or above 90 degrees east of the Oakland Hills. 92 for Fairfield, 91 around Antioch and Concord. Temperatures around the Bay, mostly 80s with 70s in San Francisco and 70s at the coast, and then mostly 80s for the North Bay until you go farther inland, where you're more likely to get up to above 90 degrees in Healdsburg by tomorrow afternoon. In terms of being dangerously hot, though, that's not likely to be a concern. Moderate heat risk is the worst that we can find on the map for Tuesday. And then that gets completely erased from the map on Wednesday because temperatures are going to drop about 10 to 15 degrees inland from Tuesday to Wednesday, a pattern shift which might even include a chance of showers. The forecast models still sorting out their differences in that time frame, though. Wednesday night into early Thursday, the European forecast model gives us a chance for some light showers kind of sneaking in as the whole pattern changes. American forecast model keeps us dry, but those two long-range models do agree that there's a better chance of showers headed our way by Friday. They disagree in terms of how much rain we could expect. That European forecast model is quite a bit more enthusiastic about producing more widespread rain across the Bay Area, but it's a chance of showers for everybody, with the best chance of adding up a few hundredths of an inch of rain likely to develop over the North Bay. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast, and we will start inland where temperatures are going to drop significantly. We're going to go from the hottest spots being in the low 90s tomorrow to 70s across the board from Wednesday through the weekend and into early next week. Bayside temperatures are also going to drop off after one more day in the 80s. We're going to see high temperatures stabilizing in the upper 60s and low 70s all the way through the weekend and into early next week. And just that one chance of showers in the forecast for Friday. We're going to see the best chance again for the North Bay, with temperatures at the coast staying in the middle portion of the 60s, kind of what you're used to seeing this time of year, any time of year for that matter.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. People from all over San Francisco broke bread together as part of a new tradition. We'll take you to the longest table when we come back.
Now you can get your KPIX news, weather, and live stream all in one place on the CBS News app. Download it free today.
A big community event took over San Francisco's Civic Center Plaza over the weekend, bringing people from all corners of the city together to share a meal and get to know one another. Rows of tables zigzagged to make room for everyone coming to the longest table. That event is free. It is a giant potluck aimed at creating an opportunity to meet new neighbors and make new friends. People from San Francisco's 50 neighborhoods were categorized into zones. A volunteer from Russian Hill told us that he was excited to bring his neighbors to make connections and to eat some good food.
The whole concept of this is like, we're gonna get people together, but not for any reason. It's not a fundraiser. It's just like, hey, grab your neighbors, come out, have a picnic, and meet other neighbors.
The longest table was first started in New York and has expanded to other cities like Chicago and LA. The CBS Evening News is next on KPIX. Local news continues on our streaming service, CBS News Bay Area.